Hey, I'm Desiree. If you're new here, I make vlogs or videos about my life here in France, and today I am talking about my toxic job experience. Alright, so I know if you've seen any of my past videos, you have seen me talk a little bit about going through some hard times with my job, visiting a lawyer, things not going very well, and I really want to get more into what happened. So, yeah, it's kind of a lot. So this job I got when I came back to France after visiting America. I didn't go back to visit my family and stuff in America for 3 years. And then when I was there, I was like, you know what? I just want to change in my life. I don't want to stay in this village anymore. I don't want to work where I'm working anymore. I want something different. Finally, I'm in a place where I can speak the language. I feel more comfortable here, more steady. Time to move on to new things. So when I got back, I immediately looked for another job, got one within 2 weeks of being back in France. I guess I'm going to talk about red flags here because now that I know these red flags, it's what I'm going to be looking for in my next job experience when I go on interviews, things like this. Because it's important to not only just be excited about a job and like, oh my god, I really want this, but also making sure that it's a good company. Basically, I'll just start with the first day and my introduction to the company. So every time I do an interview, before obviously you want to do some research on the company. And that's what I tried to do. I didn't find very much, which leads me into my interview process. When I went there, I had an interview set up for, I think it was like a Thursday or Friday, and I got some time off of work to go do it. Now, it was a little bit strange because when I went to go meet with the interviewer, he was a very young guy, and I said, oh, like, wow, that's interesting. I've never really had an interview with someone like who owned a company that was young, so that actually was cool for me to see that. And I was like, oh, that's really great. And then I had another young lady come with him in the meeting as well. And it was weird because they asked me, okay, like, do you know about the company? And when I went to go answer, I said, I think, I know it's about like a health. And I stopped myself and I said, you know what? No, can you tell me more? Because I tried to do some research, but I didn't see anything about the company. I just saw the products, and that's an e-commerce business, and I don't see anything else. Normally, when I look for, information on jobs, I can see LinkedIn, people who work there, the director, the manager, things like this. I can read about the history of the company, the purpose, the mission, everything. But that wasn't here for this company. So red flag number one is that there's no information on the company, just a website. In the interview process, it seemed the guy didn't really know how to conduct an interview. Like, he would say, okay, we like your experience, so this is what you would be doing, He asked me some questions I can't even really remember, but they were basic questions. But I think by the second or third, it was a girl who was telling him, okay, well now ask her this, like ask her availability, ask her this. And I was just sitting there like, wait, is this real? Is that real? Okay. But I went along with it because, hey, listen, I was happy as a way out. And at the end of the interview, I walk out. The interview lasted literally maybe 10, 15 minutes at most. I cannot say it lasted any more than this. I walked out with the girl and I was like, oh my god, he's so young. So he owns the company? Like, how old is he? How long has this company been here? This is really incredible, And she was like, oh yeah, that's my brother. And we've been around for about 3 years. I said, oh my god, that's your brother? Like, okay, so it's a family company. She's like, oh yeah, my other brother works here as well, but he's not here. My mom and my dad are downstairs. In my mind, I thought, a family company, it seems, it'll be a good environment. There's, real connection here. Everybody will get along, and just as long as everyone does their job, then it would be good, So I felt really excited about that. So that's that. That's the interview part. The training part was a little bit strange as well. I would just say, because when I went there on my first day to train, my training only lasted 1 day and was basically on product information and how to use a CRM and how to basically use a software that I would be using during my time there and things like this, technical stuff. And I asked a question in the interview and I said, well, if there's a question that I don't know, or if somebody wants to speak to a higher up, for example, who do I give the phone to? right? Because in every company, when you start out, you have a manager, you have someone that can communicate if you don't know what to say or how to answer certain questions, things like this. And he was like, well, technically you don't really have a manager at your post, so if you have any questions or things that you cannot answer, just go on Google, and there's nobody else for anyone to talk to, it's just you. I said, okay, well, okay, fine. Sure. After that, I had 2 or 3 days where I was shadowed by the office manager. So the directrice was the mother, director was the oldest son, assistant director is the younger son, and the office manager was the daughter. I will give her the name of Robin. That just came in mind. Okay, let's call the office manager Robin. The directrice, her mother, I found it strange because she had an office right next to us, like in our same area, in a glass office so we could see her and everything, but not once did she really ever introduce herself or say, hey, welcome to the team. Like I was expecting, it's a family company, welcome to the team. Let me show you around, make yourself comfortable. No. It was really more so my colleagues who made me feel more comfortable because I was playing, we have like games there, I was playing ping pong with one of the girls on the French team. And I was like, hey, listen, the directrice, she doesn't seem very friendly. She hasn't really said hi to me or introduced herself, really very kind of cold. Like, and the 2 guys, the one that I interviewed with, the sons, they just come in, they run upstairs and run out when it's time to go to lunch and come back in. They don't really interact with anybody. I said, is this normal? This is how they actually are? And she was like, yeah, that's actually how they are. And I said, okay, that was strange. That was like a second red flag right there. That was like the fact that they don't really interact with their team. And like, it's only like 10 to 12 people working for you. Like, what the heck? So time passes, I'm by myself. And you know, the team has conversations because I see that there's about 2 guys getting ready to leave. We had conversations about other teammates that were there before I came, and you know, little horror stories, things that happened. I said, what happened to the girl that was here before me? The English girl that was here before me? And they said, oh yeah, it just seemed like it wasn't something that they really wanted to talk about because it seemed like it was kind of a traumatic experience with the team. And no one talked about it, but there was a guy, and I'll give this guy's name. I need to give him a name. I will give him the name. Let's give him the name John. Basic name, John. Okay, fine. John, he works in the stock team and he has worked with the family for years before the company was even started. Because the company owned a restaurant before and he worked there with them and stayed with them and left into their new business, which is the one that I worked at now. So John, with the English girl, he said, because he gave me his point of view, he said she was just, you know, bizarre. She didn't really interact with the team very much. She stayed to herself, took things too seriously, things like this. Like, I try to joke with her sometimes, but she, you know, she just didn't have the kind of personality where she could take a joke, things like this. I said, okay, well, what's the big deal about that? So we, you know, we had another conversation with my colleagues, and I said, oh yeah, well, this is what he said. He said that she was just kind of socially awkward and didn't have, you know, not a fun personality, but couldn't really take joking very much, stayed to herself, didn't really interact. And they were like, what? They were like, wait, what? That's what he said? No. Much worse than that. John really did something bad against her, but we just don't like to talk about this. So we ended up going out for a drink, all of us, because one of our teammates were leaving. And we go out for a drink. And this girl who worked there before me in the English position came to have a drink, and I said, oh my god, oh, that's who we were talking about, you know, before. And so I sat across from her and we were talking and things like this. She's from England, actually. And she says, don't work for this company. You need to leave, find something else. These people do not care about anybody. They only care about money. They're selfish. And that's it. Like, they're not good people. And I said, well, why would you say that? You know, like, well, what happened? And she said, well, one day I came to work. John was there, and it was just me and John because I was early. He said something to her that would fall in the category of sexual harassment. And he made a joke. And I cannot say what it is because I don't think it's appropriate for YouTube here. But he basically said, I would take you somewhere where nobody knows where you are or what happened to you, and I would, you know, you can fill in the blank there, okay? And he was serious. There was no laughing. There was no, oh, I'm just kidding. No. Even if he said that, that wouldn't matter, because like, who says that? And she was like, he was dead serious, and it scared me. And I went to go talk to the office manager, and I went to go talk to, you know, the management, basically the directrice, everybody, and they were so mean to her. They told her that she was selfish, stop talking about it, get over it, get back to work, you're being dramatic, you're a drama queen. They were just being so mean and so rude to her. She took a health leave, like a red malady, and didn't come back until the end of her contract. And when she came back to sign her papers, just like I did, I went to go back, sign my papers, get my last papers, everything. She was signing the papers, and she was in that building alone with the two guys, one that I interviewed with and his brother. And they were like aggressive. They're these aggressive guys that just say whatever they want. They feel entitled. They feel, you know, they're more powerful than they actually are. And before she left, they were yelling at her saying, don't you ever, bad word, leave a company like that again. In a threatening manner. And, you know, she's like by herself, this like little girl, she's smaller than me. And she's like, can you imagine the anxiety and the fear that I felt being in that building with these guys alone after the experience I had with John, and this is how they treat people? And I was horrified. I was like, wait a second. I couldn't even believe it. And she's like, how could you, why are you so surprised? Like, you work with John, like, why are you? I said, oh, you know what, it's interesting you say that, because he actually told me some things I don't say anymore, some jokes I don't make anymore, because of this one experience I had with the girl. Just took it too seriously. It was you know, blown out of proportion, and it was a big deal, and I can't joke like that anymore. And I said, okay, well, that's what he was talking about, the joke. And so this stayed with me. Obviously, I felt like I found a job where, oh my god, I love my colleagues, the management's bizarre, but I feel good here. Like, I want to stay here, I want a CDI contract, I want to move closer to Lyon, like, I want to do this. Big red flag. Now, before I have my new college, because I was by myself for a good 6 months, I would say 5 to 6 months, I was by myself having a lot of work to do, doing overtime. I was doing a lot, and finally they got 2 other people to work with me. So these 2 other people, they do their training. Before they do their training, the day before, I created training materials, because when I came in, I didn't have that. In my mind, I'm like, if I could make it easier for someone else, then that would be great. So they come out, and I'm so happy to have my new 2 colleagues, and I'm excited, talking so much to them, welcoming them, showing them everything, you know, and we're just like this instantly, like it's just like this, like an instant connection pretty much. And something weird happened there that leads me to red flag number 4. I would say this was 3 days in to when they came, so they were 3 days on the job. And we're talking, and I want to show around the new colleagues to, you know, make them more comfortable. So I show them the coffee machine, where to make the coffee, where to find things, whatever, and we're talking. And Richard and his brother, Richard and Ron, let's call them Richard and Ron, the two guys upstairs, the 2 sons, they come back in from their lunch break and go upstairs, and okay, they don't say anything because we're all the English team is in the kitchen. And this is working hours, but it's fine. We just literally got up for a couple of seconds to get some coffee, whatever, come back to the table and work. And then later that afternoon, we get a Skype message asking for a meeting. I'm like, what? I never had like what do you need a meeting for? Like, okay. So we go into the meeting room, and Richard and Ron talk about some stuff. I can't remember what they were talking about, but one thing that stood out to me was the fact that they said, this is, by the way, not a coffee shop. This is a workplace, you know, you have to be quiet and just do your work and whatever. But the way he said it was just like, kind of sarcastic, you know, like, this is not a coffee shop, well duh. Like, what do you, obviously we know this is our job, we were working here, like, whatever, like, you just caught us in a bad moment, like, what? Like, it just came off kind of rude. We go back to our desk and everybody just feels weird. And then that's when they tell me about their experience with their training. When they were training with Richard was showing them technical stuff, just like he showed me. The new colleague, which was a young lady, she asked, you know, he asked, hey, do you have any questions? And she said, yeah, would it be possible to, I don't know if she meant like get to work later, work earlier, take a day off. Oh yeah, would it be possible to take like one day off or do something like take some time off for therapy that she's in. Something like this. Don't quote me here. And his response was, therapy? What do you need therapy for? What are you talking about? That's so unprofessional and so rude to ask someone such a personal question like this. Like, she just asked a basic question. You can either say yes or no, not what do you need therapy for? What do you have to talk about? like is that real? That's like crazy. But anyway, she didn't last another week. She only lasted 1 week, and on her last day there, which was like Thursday, Ron or Richard called her up for a meeting and was basically so rude to her, saying, you know what, we don't want to keep you. You're allowed to talk too much. Your contract is done. That's exactly what they said. And she told me, because I texted with her later, she was like, watch out for this guy. Because the other one, he seems a little bit nicer, but this guy seems crazy. Like, he doesn't know how to talk to people. He's rude. And he's just not normal. That leads me to the communication part. After she left, it was basically just me and my one colleague for the rest of the time, until more recently when we got new colleagues working with us. It seemed like everybody walked on eggshells. And during this time, I saw more people leaving. There was one experience with the Spanish girl that was, on the Spanish team, where she was just sending a message or doing something on her phone really quick. And Richard or Ron, one of them, comes down and he sees her on her phone. And the way that he was talking to her, I couldn't believe it, because I've never heard anybody talk to somebody like this, especially in a professional environment. He was like, what are you doing on your phone? Get off of your phone. You're supposed to be working. And she was like, oh, I'm just sending a message really quick. He's like, I don't care. Get off your phone. Like, just like this. Like, just, it was just like so awkward. Minutes later, like, she goes upstairs with him and I just hear it yelling. Aggressive, violent yelling, like, blah, 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 blah. Like, just like yelling at her, like basically he tried to fire her. Mind you, she had a CDI contract. You cannot just fire somebody like this. And she actually was laughing, because she's like, to me, he's like a kid. This guy was like, what, 24, 25 years old, and she's like 32. And she's like, well, to me, he's like a kid, so I don't take him seriously. So I was laughing. I couldn't help it, but that made him even angrier. And so she comes back downstairs. She's fine. But then his brother, Richard, then sends a message, oh, don't worry, he said that, he wanted to fire you, but he can't do that. Just, do your work. Please no more, phones, things like this. It was just like, what? You can't just go off of impulse and like try to fire somebody, and like you don't even have the right to do that. Like, it just seems so off. And after that, I really started to notice more and more communication problems, both before and after. Whereas somebody would tell you one thing, and the other person would tell you another thing, and then get mad at you for listening to that person, and it's just like, wait a second, hold on. You guys are family. You work together. Mind you, all three kids, 22, 25, and 27-year-old, still all live with their mother, live in the same home. They go home, they have dinner, they come to work together, share the same car. So why do we as your employees come to work and we ask for direction for a certain thing, a certain situation, and we have one person telling us this, the other person telling us this, and it's just a bunch of confusion, and we're just sitting here like, what? Like, what do? We can't even do our jobs properly because there's no proper communication amongst the family. And then to us, like, you're running a business here. This is a business. Like, you should already know these basic questions that we're asking you. You should already know the procedures. None of that. There was no good communication at all. And I'll go into the second part of this to go deeper into the reason why people were leaving and my own horror story or personal experience with this company in part 2. I hope it wasn't too long. I really didn't want to keep it too long, which is why I kept it to 1 part and 2 parts. But that was just like the beginning and laying the basis, and then I'll get into what has been really going on with this company and who I was working for. But anyways, thank you so much if you made it to the end, and I will tell you everything else in the next video. And thanks so much for watching. Peace.